Welcome to week 2. If last week was about seeing, this week is about feeling. You've learned that the subconscious writes most of your story. Now we trace where that story lives, not just in your mind, but also in your body. The subconscious is the author. The body is the paper it writes on. Emotion is the ink. Every reaction, every trigger, every sensation, they're not random. It's all a language, a system of signals that's designed to help you decode what's been buried beneath awareness. To truly understand the emotional body, you have to understand what it's doing for you. Emotion is not weakness, although we've often been programmed to look at it as such. What it is feedback. It tells you where your energy is flowing, where your energy is blocked, and what parts of your psyche are still living in survival mode. When something happens that feels too much, your nervous system records that. If you didn't have the tools, the safety, or the language to process it at that time, that emotion becomes frozen. Almost like a page left unturned. You move forward, but that energy doesn't. It waits in the body for the moment it can finally complete its circuit. That's why sometimes you overreact to something small, like a tone, a gesture, a silence. It's not about the moment in front of you, it's about the unfinished story behind you. Your emotional body holds those unfinished chapters. And until they're acknowledged, they keep looping, trying to resolve what was never truly felt. And let's talk about those triggers, because this is where awareness meets patience. A trigger is not an enemy, it's an alarm. It tells you something inside of you believes that it's not safe again. But the secret is that the alarm is always older than the moment. When you get triggered, your brain doesn't ask, hey, is this current? It scans for a match in memory, for the earliest moment that it felt the same way, and it reacts from there. That means every time you feel emotional intensity, your nervous system is saying, this feels familiar. This feels like that time I wasn't safe. Now, that time could be a breakup at 30 that echoes a feeling of being left alone when you were 5. A coworker's tone that mimics a parent's disapproval. A silence that reminds you of neglect. Triggers are not about the event, they're about the echo. Psychologically, this process happens in less than half a second. The body floods, the breath shortens, the mind races to assign meaning. And if you're not aware, you live inside the reaction instead of the reality. The work of this week is to slow that half second down. To pause long enough to ask, is this about now? Or is this about then? That one question changes everything. Is this about now or about then? It moves you from the passenger seat of emotion to the observer seat of awareness. It doesn't stop the emotion, but it gives it context. Every unprocessed emotion becomes a somatic imprint, a physical memory stored in the tissue, the fascia, the nervous system. Science calls this cellular memory or implicit memory, when you feel a pit in your stomach before a hard conversation, or your shoulders tighten before you even open your mouth. Your body is referencing those stored imprints. And each emotion has a location, a pattern, and a temperature. Grief tends to live in the chest. It's heavy, it's dense, it's collapsing inward. Shame often lodges itself in the gut, turning energy inward as self-blame. Fear rises through the diaphragm, tightening breath, tightening mobility. Anger builds in the arms and the jaw, the body preparing to fight or assert. The body doesn't forget. And the only way those stored imprints are released is through safe re-experiencing. Not re-traumatization, but reconnection. That's why emotional work is so manic. You can't think your way out of a wound that lives in the body. You have to feel your way through it. And many of us learned early that emotion equals danger. Maybe crying got you shamed, maybe anger got you punished, or sadness maybe got you ignored. So your subconscious, to protect you, created a strategy: suppress to survive. And for a while, that strategy worked. You functioned, you achieved, and you kept control. But here's what suppression really does. It builds internal pressure. And that pressure always finds an outlet. Anxiety, addiction, perfectionism, burnout, emotional numbness. Each one is just a different form of avoidance. You can't suppress half your emotions. When you block pain, you also block joy. When you numb sadness, you also mute love. When you silence anger, you also silence passion. Emotional intelligence, it's not about never feeling. It's about knowing how to feel without drowning. We talked about this in week 1, but I go back to it again. Your nervous system has one primary job, and that is to keep you safe. And when it detects a threat, it moves into one of 3 states: fight, flight, or freeze. They're not choices, they're automatic patterns. But with awareness, you can teach your nervous system new associations. You can show it that not every activation means danger. You can expand its window of tolerance, essentially. When emotion rises, instead of reacting, breathe. Let the emotion exist without judgment. This tells your body feeling is not fatal. And over time, that rewrites your safety baseline. The nervous system learns through repetition, not theory. So the more you practice feeling and staying, the faster your body learns it is safe to feel now. I don't have to protect in the old way anymore. That is emotional reprogramming in real time. And from a blueprint perspective, every emotion has a frequency. It's energy moving through a specific gate of awareness. And when energy gets trapped, emotion stagnates. But when energy moves, emotion transforms. Think of emotion as a sacred code of sorts, one that your soul designed to lead you back to yourself, breadcrumbs, if you will. Each feeling carries a specific instruction. Fear says, I need safety. Anger says, I need a boundary. Sadness says, I need to release. Joy says, I'm aligned. When you stop judging the emotion and start asking what it needs, you move from repression to translation. You become the interpreter of your own energy system. And that's mastery, not by controlling emotion, but by conserving with it. Now let's bring this into practice. The next time a strong emotion arises, pause and walk yourself through these 4 questions. What am I feeling right now without labeling it as right or wrong? Where do I feel it in my body? When have I felt this before? And what might this emotion be trying to tell me that words cannot? That's the blueprint process in motion. When you can bring emotion into awareness, you create a space for choice. Choice becomes authorship, and authorship rewrites destiny. You are not the emotion. You're the awareness that witnesses it. That's how healing moves from concept into embodiment. 1 pause, 1 breath, 1 translation at a time. The goal this week is not emotional control, it's emotional fluency. Let yourself feel without collapsing. Let yourself listen without defending. Let yourself stay without fleeting. Every emotion you allow to move through you frees a piece of energy that once held you captive. Every tear, every tremor, every moment you let yourself feel instead of perform, that is liberation in motion. You're learning to trust your emotional body again. Teaching your nervous system that safety and sensation can coexist. Rewriting circuitries of inherited conditioning by choosing to stay present with what's real. That's the work that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. And you're walking straight into it. With awareness, with courage. So when emotion arises this week, don't brace, breathe. Don't analyze, just listen. Emotion's not breaking you, it's bringing you home. And your emotions are the exact breadcrumbs that your own higher self left you to feel your way back through the darkness to yourself.